to God. And one of the things I wanted to do just today before we do anything else is just go to God and say thank you. So let's just pray. Father, we come before you, God, with no request. We just want to honor you. We want to praise you. We want to acknowledge, God, that your love never does fail, that you never give up on us, that your grace is continually being poured out in our life. God, the times when we wanted to give up on you or quit, we couldn't see where you were headed or where you were taking us. But you had this plan. Just like a father, you were looking at us as kids and saying, yes, just God, we just acknowledge and praise you. Okay, today, I know realistically that you guys only have about 30-minute attention span, right? So, some of you more, most of you less. So, I want to be a good steward of that attention span, and so in the next 30 minutes, I have a lot that I want to try to accomplish and try to talk about. One thing is I definitely want to get to the message, and I want to continue the series on Audacious Faith, but before we get there, we just felt like it was really important to communicate some really important kind of cool things that are going to be coming up and about Life Group. So we're going to do that. I want to hit two things real quick. Number one, we're going to be having our first baptism this Saturday. Our first baptism. Since we don't have a baptistry, we're going to be out at Lake Erie Park. They'll remember it. I actually don't know where the baptism is yet, but I wanted to make the opportunity. If there's any of you out there that have considered baptism or thought about it or just want to know a little bit more about it, this would be a great opportunity. So if you haven't already filled out your card, fill that card out and check the little box that says I'm interested in baptism. If you've already done that, just come up to me or anybody you've seen on the stage up here, grab them and say, hey, I'm interested in that. I might be even interested in this Saturday, but I would just like to know more about baptism. Okay, so that's a really cool thing. And then the second thing is that we have so many folks that as we get ready to go to the Flat Rock Community Center, we realize we're going to be really full, and we're going to be really full on our launch date, which is February 17th. So starting February 17th, it's going to be necessary for us to start with 2 services. So that's really it took a lot of work to make that happen with the folks over at the Flat Rock Community Center, so appreciate that. So we're going to be launching those 2 services. We're going to have a 9 o'clock and a 10:30 starting February 17th. So as you're inviting friends and bringing people that direction, just let them know they have kind of 2 options there. Okay, so those are the quick things. And then another thing I want to do is I want to bring out the launch team. So if you guys that are on the launch team are out there, if you want to make your way up to the stage. I know a lot of times we get up here and we talk about we. So we were like thinking this, and we did this, and you're like, who's we? So this is the we that we're going to have up here. And so I want to hit this real quick, because again, I know I'm trying to be a good steward of your 30-minute attention span. But this is kind of the group of people. Just going to introduce these folks. These folks, and every last one of them, are really people that I would not personally have been interested in starting a church unless they were part of it. So just want to introduce them real quick. This is Craig and Carol. Watching these 2 go together. Not these 2. So anyway, Craig and Carol are like the patriarchs. That's what I'm going to say. They're just these super awesome. So just to get to know everybody, I'm just going to ask them a real quick question that they don't even know about. Where is the best place you guys have ever traveled? Where?
Probably Switzerland.
I'm just Switzerland. Awesome. Okay, so you'll just get to know them a little bit as we ask these questions. Okay, and now this is Rhonda Doblant. She's heading up our pre-K and our, what do we call you, pre-K and nursery director. So she's just super awesome. And I'm just going to ask you a simple question. What's your favorite movie?
Cinderella.
gave a definite thumbs up. So Bill is a huge part of it. He's what we call our internet pastor. It's exciting. Yeah, unless you don't like our internet presence. So anyway, that's kind of his thing, but he's far more than that. I want to go with executive pastor. But anyway, so Bill, let's see what's up. If you tell us the worst thing you've ever done. I'm just short. Yeah. Tell me, if you could meet two people, have lunch with any two people, previous, they could be dead. There could be no holding. Jesus doesn't care.
Well, I did the biblical one. Paul, obviously, because of what we're doing. I love asking a million questions. And then probably the other one, Reagan.
We have a split house. Let's see it. There's only half of you are glad. Okay. All right, now this is John, and we're arguing between, because I'm all about nicknames, we're arguing between Big John and Little John, because I'm all for Little John. That's my favorite. That puts me in a prior tuck situation. Anyway, this is John Perfetti. He's our operations pastor, is what we're saying, or director, or communicator, or something. I don't know, something. Superman. I really should have pre-thought my questions, but John, if you could, how tall are you?
5'20".
That was exciting to me. That's a bit bigger. So, and this is George and Deb Koch, and Deb is our. You got the biggest applause. That's good. And so, because I'm into nicknames, if he's going to be Little John, she has to be Big Deb. Because you don't tug on Superman's cape. And you don't spit into the wind, you don't poke the mask on the Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Big Deb. That's kind of the vibe we're going on for here. George says amen. So Deb, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would that be? Why? I already know the answer.
I need a call lifeline.
She needs a lifeline. I've heard you answer this one before.
I said that was most people said, yeah, maybe probably Italy.
Well, it would be Italy if you could go anywhere. She said Michigan. I swear to you. Like it was Mackinac Island or something like that. I'm like, really? Michigan? Like, anywhere in the world. So, okay. Well, great. Well, give everybody a round of applause. And thank you. Just to kind of clarify what a launch team means is they're just helping us get the bird in the air, and they're going to help us kind of determine and decide some leadership structure and just a lot of the things that we're doing. But you can talk to any one of those people about anything that's going on, and at this point we are very open to, and I hopefully will always be open to criticism, to just to some input, just to give us some feedback. I had a lady grab me this morning and tell me a bunch of things. I'm like, I never thought about that. So that's really good. So we're very open. You can grab any of those. Also, you can talk to any of those people about Jesus or anything like that. So they're all there for you. So those are some things I wanted to hit. Things are moving along at a rapid pace. I just want to, and hopefully can always be in a place where you guys feel like we're communicating as we go. And that brings me to one more thing before we get to the content of the message today. We have set forth, kind of just thrown out there, it's all kind of a unified thing, that we want to be a church for the unchurched. Now that's kind of caught some of you a little off guard. And what's funny is, if we would have got up and said, Matthew 28, the Great Commission, that's what we want to do. We want to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. A lot of you would be like, oh, no problem. But we said, kind of a little cuter phrase, we want to be a church for the unchurched. And some of you have gone, what? Like, what? Like a church? I'm like church people, so is this not a church that I should come to? And just imagine if that's what we meant, how bad that would be. So like, somebody would come to church, and they're like, oh, you're at church, that's great. And they would say, now I'm coming to this church. Okay, well, you can't come here anymore. Go away. a couple of fears. Some of you might be like, so what does that mean? Are we going to be like one of these churches, going door to door and knocking on people's houses, and do I need to like buy a suit and a bicycle for this? I'm up for that. And he says, do we, is that the kind of church? Like, what does that mean? Some of you have been kind of intimidated, which I kind of like that intimidation, but no, that's not what we mean. We're not going to be going door to door. Here's what we simply mean by that. Every one of you have so many people in your circle of influence. You got a lot of people in that circle of influence. Family, people you work with, people you go to school with, people, just everything. And kind of to illustrate your circle of influence, it's interesting to watch our Facebook page, because every time somebody likes our page, like they bring all their friends with them, and it shows us what kind of our reach is. And so the 419 people that like our Facebook page, of those people, we reach 150,000 people. That's how far they connect. Now, some of those, don't live in Michigan, but a big chunk of those live right here downriver. And some of them go to church, but a big chunk of those people don't go to church. So when we say we're a church, we're not a church, what we mean is we want to create a church where you can invite those people to a church and know that they're going to like it, or they're going to get something from it, or they're going to enjoy it, and that's what it means. And so they're going to be able to find a relationship with Christ. Because I have been a pastor before where I didn't want to invite people to the church I was a pastor at. You ever been to a church that you didn't want to invite people? They're like, yeah, I go to this church every week. And we're like, we're looking for a church. And you give them other references to other churches. I won't ask you to raise your hand if you've been there, but we want to create just an opportunity for you guys to be able to do that. So that's kind of what we mean by church. Also, just one other thing, clarify, we want you guys to get, understand, buy in, and help with the vision of what that looks like in the future. So what we're going to do is February 9th, we're going to be having a 9 to noon at Flat Rock Community Center. February 9th is a Saturday. And if you see yourself as a leader, right, and so you're a team leader, or you head up a group that we have here already, or you just see yourself in the future being a leader, or you'd like to jump into some kind of leadership role of any kind, we'd like to offer this opportunity for you to come on February 9th to the Black Rock Community Center. And we're just going to kind of hammer out the vision, talk about what that looks like. And so if there's a little bit of you that are kind of out there going, I'm coming, I enjoy it, but I'm not quite sure what the church is about, we're going to figure out in between now and then what the church is about. And then we're going to tell you. Things are coming together. So I just want to get a bunch of stuff out there real quick. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to jump into the Audacious faith series. So I'm just going to pray and that God will increase our faith. We've got to pray as we turn now about the opening of the Word. Pray you speak to us. Pray you make the truth known. And I truly pray that everyone in I say, just all right. So we've been talking audacious faith. Now, you guys have a marshmallow, and if you want to grab your marshmallow, here's the reason you've been given a marshmallow. We gave you two because we know you can't sit through an entire service and not eat one of them. So one of those is just for you to eat. Enjoy. It's on us. Enjoy that marshmallow. But the other marshmallow, this marshmallow represents that thing in your life. That thing in your life that means everything to you. That thing that you are passionate about. And in another way, it represents that thing that maybe in between you and God. So that's this marshmallow. So it's that one big thing to you. So this is like your precious. Okay? Like this Lord of the Rings, your Gollum right now. So what I want you to do is I want you to pull out that marshmallow. I want you to hold it. And I want you to kind of hunch over it a little bit. Okay. I want you to kind of stroke it just a little bit. And I just want you to say, it's process. Do that count of three. Ready for that? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. my yoga. It's not precious, but you must do. So anyway, so this is your precious, this is your thing that kind of consumes your heart. And here's the deal about it. It may be a really good thing, even what you might call a blessing from God thing, like it might be your spouse or your career or your family or your church. I mean, it might be something really good, or it could be something that's very bad. It's something that's separating you from God. It might be a sin or a hidden secret or something that you just can't let go of. But by the end of this message, I want you to just visualize that in that marshmallow. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump into Hebrews chapter 11. In Hebrews 11, verse 17, just want to hit two verses in here. It's talking about these men of faith, and we've been working through Hebrews 11. As we get to this point, it talks about God testing Abraham. Verse 17. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. Which, for those of you who don't know, Isaac is not the family dog. Isaac is his son. He offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had received the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Okay? So just want to hit that verse. So maybe you've heard this story before, maybe you haven't. God comes to Abraham. He says, "I want you to take your son, your only son, and I want you to offer him as a sacrifice." And it doesn't say that Abraham struggled with it, or that he asked a bunch of people about it, or got some counsel. It just says, so he packed up his son and hauled him off to offer him as a sacrifice, not knowing anything other than it was going to happen. Right? So you've never heard that story before, or you have. You might look at that. The question you got to have is, why would God ask him to do that? So that's the first question. The second question is, and why would Abraham do that? Do you have any idea how much trouble he's going to be in with Sarah? And so that's his point. And so you just ask that question, like, why would he do that? And I think, genuinely believe this, we can answer those two questions. Why would God ask him to do that? And number two, why would Abraham do that? You get about as deep as you can get. That is about as deep as faith is. If you understand those, and then be able to look at it in your life and be able to do the same kind of thing. So those are the two questions we're going to answer. We're going to look at, first of all, the question, why would God ask him to do it? And you've got a blank in your bulletin, your blank filler in. I know some of you wanted those, so I gave you like 2 blanks. Fill it in. There you go. First blank is because, and this I believe is the really answered question, God is jealous. The reason that Abraham would ask, or God would ask Abraham to do it, is because God is jealous. There is a passage in Exodus, chapter 34. This is one of those few first things that we really learn about the nature of God. It says Exodus 34, 16. What does it say? 14. Thank you. Here we go. Do not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. So not only is he a jealous God, but his name is jealous. Now, I've never really struggled with jealousy, but there has been one time in my relationship with my wife where I was jealous. Just one time. I've never been concerned about my wife in 16 years of marriage. 16, this audience, we've been married. I've never really been jealous or worried about her being around good-looking, men, or, men that are just smooth or anything, because, really. She comes home with this, right? So that's never been a concern or anything like that. So this kind of caught me off guard, that she was, we were at this church, and we've been married for about 5 years, and she goes to church, and she's helping leading worship, and there's this new guy that's there, and he's like this super godly, awesome guy, and we're all about him, and it was exciting, and I was about him. I put him on the worship team. I was really excited to have him on board. And she came home from practice, and they went alone, okay? It was a bunch of, nobody did anything wrong here. She was at the practice, and she came home, and she was like, man, he's just so godly. He was talking about this passage and this passage, and he's just such a super godly person. And I was like, all of a sudden, hair on the back of my neck stood up. And I was like, nobody leads my wife spiritually but me. Like, that was the defining moment. I was like, she could tell me that they went to dinner together. I wouldn't care. But if he's leading you spiritually in dinner, it's going to be awesome. And all of a sudden, I just got super jealous. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like thinking about ways that like I can take him out and stuff. And so that jealousy. And so I haven't experienced it very many times, but it was like this super jealous thing. And what the key issue was I really didn't care about him at all. I didn't even think she had done anything wrong. That wasn't the deal. It was just the idea that her heart in any way could be turned even a little bit from me, like jealous. And I realized in that moment that is a God-like quality. And the reason I became jealous is because I love her and I'm passionate about her. And the reason God becomes jealous is because he loves you and he is passionate about you. And the idea that your heart would go after some of the stuff that our heart goes after. And that as a loving father, that he would look down and he would see us turning our attention towards these, the Bible calls them false gods, and it's just fruitless things here on this earth. And on top of that sin and temptation, God's just an all-consuming, jealous, fiery God. And so the answer to the question is, why did he come to Abraham and say, I want you to sacrifice your son? Because he wanted to test him. Because he's a jealous God. He wanted to say, I have to be number one. I have to be number one in life. Let me just say this. If this is all you grab from the message today, just hear this one more. God has to be first, and everything else flows from that. God has to be first, and everything else flows from that. God will bless you with all this kind of great stuff in life, family and friends and just all that kind of stuff, but God's got to be number one, and it all flows out from there. And so now we come to the question. So why would Abraham actually do it? Right, so we get why God would be asking. He just wants to test and see where Abraham's heart is. He wants to know how devoted he is. But why would Abraham actually do that? And I think it gets a little bit of a background story here. Because this isn't like Abraham's first rodeo. This isn't the first time that God's asked something. He's got a whole life up until this point where he's experienced what it's like to put God first, and then he's had the opportunities where he hasn't put God first. You know the difference. So he's had both experiences. And I want to give you just one where this kind of went really wrong. I could point to several in Abraham's life, but I want to give you one where it's wrong. So years and years ago, before this event, God comes to Abraham, and it seems almost cruel. God comes to him and says, Abraham, I'm going to make you the father of a great nation. You're going to have all kinds of relatives and family. It's going to be this huge nation. And that really must have struck Abraham wrong, because Abraham had a barren wife. And she had been barren for quite some time. And so he thought, okay, wow, father of a great nation. Like God's going to answer these prayers. So he goes home and nothing happens. A year later, nothing happens. Time starts to go by, nothing's happening. All he's got is God telling him, you're going to have a son. You're going to be the father of a great nation. And time goes by, and time goes by. Nothing happens. And he's waiting on God. In fact, before it was all said and done, Abraham waited 25 years. From the time God promised him he was going to be the father, to the time he actually became a father. And there was this incredibly faith-testing waiting period of time. And in the middle of that, they got antsy. We have a tendency to get antsy when we have to wait for answers, right? They got antsy, and Sarah comes to him with a plan. She brings in her younger, more attractive concubine. And she says, we're going to make God's plan happen. God wants you to be a father of a great nation. You need to sleep with my concubine. You need to get her pregnant. And to which Abraham responded, okay. Let me be this clear. My wife is asking me to sleep with her. Okay. You're approving this. Done. So he goes ahead and he messes up. He makes a mistake. He sleeps with her and gets her pregnant. And then guess what happens? It's great. You'll have to read it. I really do. I want you to go home and read Genesis 16. Guess who's mad at Abraham? Sarah. And she even has the gall to say, you did this to me. So you read through this story, and so there's this problem. And that's a whole marriage sermon, like for another time, women's retreat. So anyway. So, you get in trouble. So Abraham, they were both at fault. They both they give in, and they're tired of waiting on God. And so they do this. They have a child. Abraham and Sarah are having problems now, and this woman gets pregnant, and she gives birth to this child named Ishmael, which becomes the father of a reckless, wild nation. And Abraham learned through that experience that God's first. Like, instead of putting my need for this family and everything and putting it above everything, God's first, and everything flows from that, and things are good. And he learned that kind of hard way. So now we're at 99 years old. 99 years old, and God finally comes to him after 25 years of waiting and says, okay, now we're going to do this. Now you're going to have a child. And they have a child, and it's Isaac. You've got to just imagine what it was like for Abraham. This is like his everything. This is before like people had careers, and and for people back then, like everything was their family. You know, you were a good man, you were a well thought of man, if you had lots of kids, and you're kind of looked at as small and little if you just had just a few kids. And Abraham, old man, doesn't have any kids. And so this is his career, this is his life, this is his family, this is his legacy, all tied up into this one kid. God gives him the promise. God comes to him and says, I want you to sacrifice him. I want you to sacrifice him. Why? Hebrews 11:19. Abraham reasoned that God could raise the dead. And figuratively speaking, he did raise Isaac back. That was his thought. He was like, everything's wrapped into this. And I know if I don't make God first, and everything will flow from that. If I don't make God first, then things are going to be rough. So I've got to put him first. And so his faith was just looking at those things that weren't seen, looking at the unseen, and going, I guess God'll just bring him back from the dead. I guess that's what's going to have to happen. And his faith was so strong that he knew that all he had to do was just put God first. I want to tell you, we may not be asked by God to sacrifice our son or anything like that. That was a one-time thing. So that's the only time it happened in the Bible. So don't do that. God is not asking you to do that. So we've been thinking about it. But God does come to us and does bless us. He wants to look at us. He's a jealous God. He puts you first in your life. And so I want you to hold that marshmallow again. I want you to ask yourself this question. What is that thing? What's your precious? What's that thing that you can do for God? And what I want you to do with that is just real simple. This is like a you personal thing. If we had the ability to put fire in here, what we would do is we would have like a big fire, and you would come and you would roast that marshmallow and burn it as a sacrifice to God. I think this would be, we'd be kicked out here forever. So, but I want you to take that. And for you, this might be a very, very real thing. This might be a relationship. God comes to you and tests, and sometimes, you want God first, but He's getting ready to get away from you. You want God, to be first, but not if it means changing your job. You want God to be first, but in that, there is always the pain of sacrifice to put on. So whatever that thing is in your life, I want you to take this very first thing. Maybe you're going to go home today, maybe it's going to be on your way out, you're just going to throw it in the trash can. But I want you to release that, to offer it as a sacrifice. And for some of you, that may be a huge faith step. You may be going, I don't know how this is going to work. I guess I can raise you from the dead. Just to have that kind of thing. And just to finish the story, Abraham goes up. Just if you haven't heard the end of the story, if you missed it, he comes up there, and Abraham gets ready to sacrifice, and God was like, no, wait. Everything's riding on this. Don't do that. I just wanted to test and see where your heart is. I can make a promise to you. If God is absolutely first, and you take that faith step and make that happen, everything good will flow. God, I pray that as we increase our faith, as we grow closer to you,